Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, hockey fans. It is a not too bad little 4 degrees Celsius, 40 degrees Fahrenheit in bright and sunny and finally spring-like Bridgewater, Nova Scotia today. My name is Justin, Bridgewater's Finest on YouTube, Blockbuster_guy on Twitter, and welcome to the Sunday, April 17th edition of the Bridgewater's Finest 2016 NHL Playoffs podcast. So we had another full 4-game slate on the go last night. As I mentioned on yesterday's podcast, I unfortunately had to miss the entirety of the New York Rangers Pittsburgh Penguins game. I missed the majority of Philadelphia at Washington, damn work, but I did go back and I did get to watch the majority of both of those games. I picked those up this morning and got to watch them on replay, so I do at least have some context to talk about these games. We're going to start with the Rangers at the Penguins. Penguins lead that series 1-0 heading into Game 2, but the Rangers with a big win on enemy ice, wrestling home ice advantage away from the Penguins. Rangers win Game 2 4-2. Shots in this game were 31-28 Pittsburgh. Series is now tied at a game apiece. King Henrik, this was the big story. Lundqvist was back in net. I was somewhat critical of that. I always like to err on the side of caution and player safety. But I mean, if he was ready to go, he was ready to go. And clearly he was, because he stopped 29 of 31. So great showing there from the King. And he starts this game with a huge save on the Malkin Letang give and go early in the first period. Jeff Zatkoff on the other end of the ice responding with 2 big stops on Derek Stepan's partial breakaway. So both the goaltenders feel like they're really locked in this game. Looks like it's going to be a good one. Rangers start amping up the physicality in the first period until about midway. The Rangers actually record 13 consecutive hits between 5 minutes and 1 second and 12 minutes and 38 seconds. 13 straight hits, like the Penguins had no answer for the Rangers' physicality early in the first period. Zatkoff opens up the second. We had a scoreless first. He opens up the second period with another huge save on a backhand shot from Rick Nash. Zatkoff, again, looking really good in relief of Marc-Andre Fleury. Evgeny Malkin was also back in the lineup in this game for the Penguins. So the Penguins' big guns, Malkin, Crosby, Kessel, they start working. They draw a penalty. They get on the power play. And 3 minutes and 21 seconds into the second period, our scoring has been opened. Pittsburgh on the power play. It's Phil Kessel. Assists going to Daly and Bonino. A beautiful little tic-tac-toe play. Daly with a little drop pass back to Kessel. Kessel buries it. One of the best wrist shots in hockey has Phil Kessel. It is 1-0 Pittsburgh on home ice. Rangers go back to that physical play that we talked about a little bit earlier. They record another 7 straight hits after the Phil Kessel goal, so they want to impose their will. And what happens? That's exactly what happens. The Rangers pick up the offense. 12 minutes and 38 seconds into the second period. Rangers tie the game. It's Keith Yandel. He pinches in from the blue line, snaps a little wrist shot past Jeff Zatkoff. Assists go to JT Miller and Derek Brassard. The game is tied. And before you can take a breath, less than 20 seconds later, 12:56 of the second period, the Rangers wrestle the lead away. Derek Brassard this time gets the goal. JT Miller with the assist as well, his second assist in less than 20 seconds. And I don't know how to pronounce this guy's name. It's Skjei. Skay? I have no idea how to pronounce his name. I apologize to Rangers fans. Miller with a nice little lead pass to Brassard, and Brassard puts it home. It's now 2-1 Rangers. Now, the Penguins do put out the coach's challenge there. They challenge it on the grounds of the play being offside. It fails for Pittsburgh. That means they lose their timeout. I feel like that came into play late in the game. I think that they would have loved to have taken a timeout here late in the game, but didn't work out. Coach's challenge actually fails for one of the first times in the playoffs, but there you go. Rangers have a 2-1 lead. Later in the period, Brian Rust takes a penalty, sits down for 2 minutes, but as he leaves the box, he is sprung on a breakaway. He gets stoned. That is an excellent scoring chance. The Pens are now trying to amp up the physical play. They get 3 straight hits. Unfortunately for the Penguins, it backfires. Maybe that's not their game. 16:52 of the second period, the Rangers increase their lead. Mats Zuccarello with his first of the playoffs. Another assist for JT Miller. That's his third consecutive assist. This was actually an interesting little play. Zuccarello puts the puck cross ice to Miller. Miller kind of holds it for a little bit. Then he puts it back cross ice for Zuccarello. It's like the world's longest give and go. Zuccarello buries it behind Zatkov, Z on Z crime, and the Rangers have their third consecutive unanswered goal. JT Miller, as I mentioned, with the 3 assists, actually takes an interference penalty late in the second period. No damage there, but there was some damage done immediately to open the third. Like, you're the Penguins, you're down a couple of goals here, you really need a great opening to this period. It doesn't happen. 39 seconds into the third period, the Rangers increase the lead to 3. It's Chris Kreider from Derek Brassard. A turnover. Nice little wrister by Chris Kreider. He's got a decent shot. He was a 20-goal scorer this year. I don't personally like him because of the whole Carey Price thing a couple years ago, but, that's in the past. The past is the past, right? I hope. I think. Kreider puts it in. It's 4-1 Rangers. Although, speaking of Kreider, he would later take a goalie interference penalty, and that just made me shudder to watch, because anytime you hear Kreider and goalie in the same sentence, my blood starts to boil. Keith Yandel later takes a cross-checking penalty on Evgeny Malkin, sends the Penguins to the power play. They do convert, plenty of time left here. 5 minutes and 42 seconds into the third period. Pittsburgh with their second power play goal. Phil Kessel with his second power play goal. Assists go to Nick Bonino and Evgeny Malkin. Nice little backhand pass from Bonino, and Kessel puts it home. It's 4-2. The Penguins keep pushing. Lundqvist, standing tall, stops Ben Lovejoy in traffic. That was a great chance for Lovejoy. The Rangers end up blocking 9 shots in the last half of the third period. And really, the story of the game for me was the Rangers' physicality. The Rangers out-hit the Penguins in this game 57-25. Not even close. The Rangers tie the series. They win the game 4-2, taking home ice advantage away from the Penguins. Game 3 moves to New York. The Rangers have the momentum. It'll be interesting to see how the Penguins answer. Last night's other Eastern Conference matchup saw Game 2 between the Philadelphia Flyers and the Washington Capitals. Capitals leading this series 1-0 heading into Game 2. A very convincing win for the Capitals, an opportunistic win for the Capitals. 4-1, they beat Philadelphia in Game 2. This was a bit of a strange game, and we'll get into it. We'll get into exactly why here in a second. The shots were 42-23 for the Flyers. That is not even close. That is a huge margin that the Flyers outshot Washington, and that's why I'm saying they were opportunistic. 4 goals on just 23 shots. Capitals therefore take a 2-0 lead in this series, heading to Philadelphia for Game 3, but it wasn't looking that way early. A really quick chance for the Flyers early in the first period. Sam Gagner with a dangerous backhander that was turned away by Braden Holtby. This game was a hit parade early on. First 7 minutes of the game saw 16 total hits between the two teams, 9 of them for Philadelphia. There were 29 hits total in the first period. A very, very physical game, including Alexander Ovechkin dumping another Flyer. He dumps Luke Schenn into his own bench, which I thought was really interesting. Or sorry, not Luke Schenn, Braden Schenn. I thought it was really interesting that he dumped Braden Schenn when Braden Schenn has been moved to the center position to take over for Sean Couturier, who is injured because of an Alex Ovechkin hit. Not a dirty one, but injured because of an Ovechkin hit. I just thought it was interesting that he then targets Braden Schenn. He's just going to take out everybody that plays the center role on that second line. Brandon Manning takes a holding the stick penalty, sending the Capitals to the power play. Not the best idea in the world. 14 minutes and 9 seconds into the first period, Washington opens the scoring power play goal. John Carlson, it's his second of the playoffs. Assists go to Backstrom and Johansson. Just a seeing eye wrister by John Carlson that gets home. Capitals on the board. To their credit, though, this time the Flyers engineer a huge pushback after that goal. They really started, at that point, playing as though they were the team that was down 1-0, in danger of going down 2-0 if they lost this game. 16 shot attempts between the goal and the end of the first period. They draw 2 penalties. Unfortunately, they can't do any damage. John Carlson at the other end, another wide open chance. This time he gets stoned by Steve Mason sliding across. Mason looked like he might have injured his groin a little bit on that play. It'll be interesting to see maybe if he doesn't play in Game 3. That would be a bit of a blow, obviously, to the Flyers, but big save by Steve Mason, and it is noteworthy that, he did finish the game, so he's probably not injured, but that'll be something to kind of just keep one eye on. However, the Capitals opening up the second period, just 2 minutes and 26 seconds in, Capitals double their lead. It's Jason Chimera from Alzner and Niskanen, and this is probably, this is the goal that everybody's talking about. Alzner has the puck down in his own end. He tries to dump it. It's tipped by Chimera at center ice. Now, what Steve Mason was trying to do was, he was trying to draw a potential icing call. But if the puck was going to hit him, he was just trying to direct it into the corner. But he forgot to direct it into the corner. He didn't have his stick down in front of his 5-hole. He didn't have his 5-hole closed. And the puck literally just trickles through his 5-hole, and it's in the net. And you can see him, he looks back, he sees it, and he just looks to the heavens. You feel for the poor guy, because that's just that's one of those things that you almost never live down as a goaltender. We're still making fun of Marty Brodeur for that goal in the playoffs a few years back. They even showed it on Hockey Night in Canada last night. So we're still making fun of Brodeur for that. So it's one of those things that it's very hard to live down, and I feel for Steve Mason, because obviously, maybe, again, he was in a little bit of pain from that whole groin thing. His head just wasn't in that particular play. Unbelievable. It goes on the score sheet as a goal for Jason Chimera, probably the easiest goal that he's ever scored, but unfortunately, it puts the Flyers down 2-0. After that goal, the teams start trading hits, they're trading chances, they're even trading penalties. See Burakovsky and Cousins, and Philadelphia finally gets one to go in. 9 minutes and 37 seconds into the second period, Philadelphia cuts the lead in half. It's Jake Voracek with his first goal of the playoffs. Assist going to Shen and the Ghost Bear, Shane Gostis Bear. A nice little deke in close by Voracek. The Washington defenseman kind of lost the puck in his skates. Voracek's got great hands. I used to watch him in the queue for the Mooseheads. He's got unbelievable hands. He shows it on that play. A little deke, tucks it behind Holtby, and it is now a 2-1 game. Flyers are back in this. TJ Oshie takes a penalty. Flyers go into the power play. Holtby absolutely robs Claude Giroux in close. That could have been the tie game, and it could have been all the momentum on the way for the Flyers. Giroux gets robbed by Braden Holtby, starting to look like that Vezina candidate there. Mark Streit, holding penalty on Nick Backstrom after a Backstrom near miss. Maybe it kind of felt like maybe he had to do it, or else Backstrom was going to get another great scoring chance. Unfortunately, sends the Caps back to the power play. 17-21 into the second period. Washington gets their 2-goal lead back on the power play. It's Ovi from Backstrom and Johansson, and we might as well just call this goal the Ovi goal. That beautiful little just clapper slap shot from the face-off circle. There's very few guys in the league that are going to stop that. Ovechkin restores the 2-goal lead. Ovechkin actually has another great chance closing out the second period. Steve Mason stones Ovechkin with the glove. They survive the end of the second going into the third. This game is not out of reach. It's only 3-1 at this point. Early in the third, Evgeny Kuznetsov, ding, rings it off the post. A big scare for the Flyers. I talked about Kuznetsov. I thought he was going to get off the schneid. He damn near did on that play. The majority of this third period is kind of spent back and forth. There are very few chances going either way. 17:47 into the third period. Washington, unfortunately, puts this game out of reach, unfortunately for Flyers fans. Nick Backstrom, his first goal of the playoffs. Oshie and Carlson with the assists. Just an absolute snipe coming down the off wing. Bang, Backstrom puts them up for good. 4-1. Although, John Van de Velde, 5 seconds left in this game. I can't believe I just called him John Van de Velde. That's the name of a golfer. Sorry. Chris Van de Velde. 5 seconds left in this game, tucks it behind Holtby, and it hits the bloody post. What a nice little message that would have been for the Flyers to kind of keep hope going forward in this series. But you know what they say about a guy like Holtby? You got to be good to be lucky and lucky to be good. Holtby keeps it out after it hits the post. 4-1 is your final for Washington. It's got to be gut-wrenching, again, for Steve Mason, that awful chip-in goal stood up as the game-winning goal. Unfortunately, could have been a different game maybe if that didn't go in, but Capitals roll 4-1 victory. Washington, again, getting badly outshot in this game, but they take a 2-0 series lead heading to Philly. Let's head to the West now with Minnesota taking on Dallas in Game 2. Again, Dallas had a 1-0 series lead heading into this game. They double that, take a 2-0 series lead with a pretty hard-fought 2-1 victory over the Minnesota Wild. Shots in this game, 28-26 in favor of Dallas. Kari Lehtonen setting the tone early here with a big save. Nino Niederreiter sent in on the breakaway. Lehtonen keeps it out, and again, that's big momentum, and that's a confidence builder, a huge confidence builder for a goaltender to make a big save like that. We got a big scrum early in the first period. We have 7 official hits recorded in the span of 10 seconds. So these guys were just throwing themselves at each other. 7 hits in 10 seconds. The physicality continues. Johns for the Stars absolutely plastering Fontaine at the Wild bench. Put that one on a poster somewhere. Marco Scandella takes himself a hooking penalty. Unfortunately, the Stars give it right back on a too many men on the ice penalty on a power play. That is, God, it's things like that. That's just like, I'm not a coach. I've never been a coach, but I watch something like that and I just think, if I was a coach, I'd be bald. Because as soon as I saw somebody do something like that, I'm not sure I'd play them the rest of the game. Patrick Sharp ended up serving the penalty for the too many men. I don't know whether it was his fault or not, but he certainly served it. But just things like that just make me cringe, even though I'm not a coach. Kari Lehtonen keeps up his solid play. 2 more big saves, both on Michael Granlund at the side of the net at various rushes by the Wild. 2 more big saves, keeping this thing scoreless. The back and forth play really continuing into the second period until 3 minutes and 54 seconds into the second. Dallas gets on the board. It's Antoine Roussel from Hemsky with the weird little deflection off the skate over the back of the net that trickles down Devin Dubnyk's back and just kind of tucks into the net. And this is the big controversial goal of last night, questioning whether you can call that a distinct kicking motion. I don't think you can. I think it's stupid to call it a distinct kicking motion. I don't think there's anybody that can accurately articulate why Antoine Roussel from the back of the net would try to kick the puck over the net and have it trickle down the goaltender's back. He was trying to direct the puck with his skate, of course, but that's legal. That's perfectly fine. He wasn't trying to kick it into the net or even really direct it towards the net. I think he was just trying to direct it from his skate onto his stick so that he could then maybe attempt a wraparound or find a pass or something like that. There's no one that can, I think, accurately articulate why this should have been called a no-goal for a distinct kicking motion. Now, whether or not the net was off its moorings, I don't know, because every angle that I've seen doesn't show everything all at once to the degree where I can confidently say, okay, yeah, the net was still on. I understand the rule, but I have to question whether or not there was sort of conclusive evidence one way or the other. And remember, the goal was immediately called no goal on the ice. Immediately, they get together and they change the call, I believe. I can't remember whether they changed the call before an official ruling or not, but the initial call was no goal on the ice. So I can't see conclusive evidence one way or the other, but apparently the referees felt confident enough to say it was conclusive. It was a goal. Dallas is on the board, 1-0. What did you guys think of that goal? Did you think that should have counted? Did you think it was a good goal? Did you think it was not a good goal? Did you think we have enough of an angle to say one way or the other? What did you think? Sound off on that Antoine Roussel goal. The physicality starts picking up in this game. Middle of the second period, the Wild are going all out, blocking shots as well, desperately trying to get back in this game. They do not want to go down 2-0 to a great team like the Stars. Unfortunately, Stoll and Carter take penalties on the same play. Another one. Another instance of two players taking a penalty on the same play. Awesome! They send one of the best power play teams and the best offensive team in hockey to a 5-on-3 power play. Awesome! Great job, guys! Woohoo! Now, luckily, they do kill it off, so they did manage to survive any damage there. 3 near misses by Dallas, Lehtinen then denying Charlie Coyle on the doorstep, so that could have been a huge momentum swing right there. Minnesota kind of dodges 3 bullets, and then they get a great chance down the other end of the ice. Lehtinen with another huge save. Feels like he might be on his way to another shutout. Oops, I suppose I shouldn't have said that. Devin Dubnyk makes a big stop on Patrick Eaves, middle of the third period, keeping this a 1-goal game. It's a goalie battle. We should just live with it. We got to get used to it. These are 2 fairly good goaltenders. Kari Lehtinen has been one of the surprises of these playoffs for me. David Jones missing the Dallas net. Dallas turns it around immediately into transition. 10 minutes and 23 seconds into the third period. Dallas doubles their lead. And who else? Jamie Benn from Eakin. Cody Eakin, a nice little bank pass up the boards. Sends him in on a partial breakaway. Nifty little move close to the net. Tucks it in. Jamie Benn doubles the Stars' lead. It's 2-0. Shortly after the goal, Johnny Oduya, a guy that's a pretty dependable defenseman back there. Oduya takes a really bad penalty, holding the stick. Like, come on, guys. Are we really taking holding the stick penalties at this point in the evolution of hockey? Like, good lord. Oduya takes the penalty very shortly after the goal, and 12:42 of the third, Minnesota makes this a 1-goal game again. On the power play, it's Marco Scandella with a slapper from the point, assists going to Dumba and Zucker. This is a close game. It's 2-1. But as we get later in the third, one of the most interesting sequences in these playoffs occurs. The Wild are going to get called here for a delayed penalty. Jason Spezza thinks he's playing NHL 16 because he just takes the puck and he cycles it around. This is in his own zone, by the way. So he starts like he's coming out with it, and then he just turns back, doubles back down around his net. He's literally standing behind the net waiting for a Wild player to come after him because he knows as soon as one of the Wild players touches the puck, boom, the play is going to be stopped. He's killing clock. You see people do this in NHL 16 all the time, trying to scum out wins when they're up by 1, and that's literally what Spezza's doing, and to me it was hilarious. Like, I thought it was amazing, and through this, they literally kill over a minute of the clock with like less than 5 minutes left in the game. So, in a way, it was kind of genius. So, I got to commend Spezza on that. That's certainly some creativity. Late in the game, Minnesota is really pushing to tie this thing up. Kari Lehtinen making great saves on a tip from Koivu. He actually bats the puck out of the air. Awesome save there. Save on Spurgeon. Another save on Michael Granlund. Lehtinen had his number in this game. Time expires. Dallas holds on for a 2-1 victory. Much more competitive game than Game 1 was. Dallas takes both games on their home ice, heading to Minnesota for Game 3. So once again, tell me how you felt about the Antoine Roussel goal, and tell me how you felt about that whole Jason Spezza NHL 16 sequence where he was just like playing keep away with the puck. He's like, want it, can't have it. Want it, can't have it. Gotta catch me, missed me, now you gotta kiss me. Like, it's just, to me it was hilarious. I thought it was genius. But tell me what you guys thought about that and the Roussel goal. And we go to the late game, our final game of the evening, the San Jose Sharks in Los Angeles taking on the Kings for Game 2 of their series. Sharks with an impressive 4-3 victory in Game 1. Sharks with an even more impressive 2-1 victory in Game 2. Unbelievable. The Sharks, the playoff snake-bitten Sharks, beat the 2-time Stanley Cup champions twice on their home ice. I don't think anybody, the deepest Sharks homer, I don't think would have said, oh yeah, the Sharks are going to beat them twice in Los Angeles. Unbelievable, phenomenal. The Kings outshot the Sharks in this game, but it was close. It was 27-23. Sharks take a 2-0 series lead. Unreal. The Sharks are throwing tons of rubber at the net early in the first period. 3 misses in the span of about 5 seconds. So they're just throwing everything at Quick. And I think that's a way to handle Jonathan Quick because he's so athletic and he's so good. I think you just got to throw everything at him. You got to hope for a rebound, desperate. It's almost like you're waiting for a guy to sort of punch himself out. You're sort of waiting for Quick to save himself out. You just keep throwing it at the net, keep throwing it at the net. Hopefully good things happen. Eventually a good thing does happen. 3 minutes and 37 seconds into the first period, Sharks get on the board. It's Joe Pavelski, his second of the playoffs. He has been a force in these first two games. Burns and Thornton with the assists, a screenshot from Pavelski, and the puck gets past Jonathan Quick. It is a 1-0 Sharks lead. After the goal, the Sharks do a great job maintaining that physical edge. They take a holding penalty, no damage done on that. The Kings, for their part, are selling out to block these shots, doing what you need to do when you're down 1-0 in the series and down 1-0 in the game. Selling out to block shots, keeping this thing close, keeping it competitive. But it really starts turning into a bit of a track meet here. It's up and down the ice, and up and down the ice, and up and down the ice. Very few chances either way. A lot of this game was played in the neutral zone. Luke Schenn, a big hit, dumping Jonas Donskoy late in the first period at the Kings bench. That's a momentum picker-upper. That's a momentum getter for the Kings for sure. Dwight King taking a really dumb penalty. That's a momentum killer right there. Dwight King takes that penalty. But the Kings' penalty kill was unbelievable. Just block shot after block shot after block shot. The Kings' penalty kill played really, really well in the first half of this game. Kings still doing what they need to do. They come out for the second period, come out strong. They're throwing the body. They're blocking shots. It's a high tempo. You feel like this game's going to turn around. Jeff Carter has a great chance. The Sharks are starting their pushback, but Carter's got a great chance. Big save by Martin Jones. He was excellent in this game. Toffoli and Lucic, one more time, taking penalties on the same play. What are you doing? What is going on with the NHL? Did this happen a lot in the regular season? I didn't notice it. But it seems like it's happening a lot in these playoffs. Two players from the same team taking a penalty on the same play. And you put the Sharks on a 5-on-3, that's not going to work out very well for you. 8:44 into the second period. Sharks double their lead here on the power play. It's Logan Couture from Pavelski and Marleau. A little rebound off the Pavelski shot. Couture tucks it in. Big celebration. Sharks are up 2-0. The Kings kill off the second half of that 5-on-3, and in the last 5 minutes of the second period, huge pushback for Los Angeles. Milan Lucic stopped by Martin Jones heading into the third, but the Kings definitely feel like they've got the momentum back. The Kings are getting the volume of the chances for the rest of this game. They're getting the volume. I would argue the Sharks were getting quality. A lot of the Kings' chances didn't really look that dangerous, or Martin Jones just made them look easy. One or the other, but they didn't feel like dangerous shots to me by and large. Every time the Sharks got a chance, which admittedly there were fewer because the Kings had really tightened up defensively, but every time they got a chance, it felt like it was more dangerous. That's just my impression from watching the game. I could be wrong about that objectively, but it did feel like the Sharks were getting the better quality of chances. Both teams kind of getting into penalty trouble late. They're both taking penalties. The Kings on the power play cut this lead in half. 14:59 of the third period. Kings on the power play. It's Vincent Lecavalier getting his first of these playoffs. Assists go to Muzzin and Pearson, scramble in front of the Sharks net, and Lecavalier gets the goal. This lead is cut in half. We got ourselves a hockey game for these last 5 minutes. The Kings have all the momentum here. Pressure, forecheck, throwing the body, everything on net. San Jose survives, and San Jose holds on for the 2-1 victory. These two teams combined for 87 hits, 45 blocks, but for me, one of the stories of the game, I talked about it from Game 1. The Kings had 20 giveaways in Game 1. I said they have to be better. They have to have at least half of those taken away in order to really have a great chance at winning this game. They had 14 more giveaways, 34 giveaways in 2 games. That's not good enough, and I'm going to keep saying it until they stop doing it. They're a better puck possession team than that. 14 giveaways in this game 2. It was closer. It was definitely tighter, but the Sharks surprising everyone, I would say, in the NHL, taking both games in Los Angeles. I think I might start doing this now for the second week of the podcast here. I'm going to throw it out to you guys. After we have done reviewing the games, I'm going to ask you guys, what was your favorite game? What was your favorite game of the night? Of the 4 or the 3 or whatever that we happen to have that night, what games were your favorites? I think, me personally, I would say my favorite game was probably Philadelphia, Washington. I thought that one was, was pretty exciting, and it's always great to watch a great team like Washington play. But, the Sharks and the Kings was an amazing game. It's been a great series. For me, it's between those two. Actually, maybe I'm leaning towards Sharks and Kings. I'll go Sharks and Kings, but what was your favorite game of last night? The 4-a-days just keep on coming, folks. Let's preview tonight's action Sunday. The first game actually kicks off. It's another afternoon game, 3 p.m. Eastern. That is St. Louis traveling to Chicago to take on the Blackhawks. This series is tied up at 1 game apiece. Again, starts at 3 p.m. Eastern. Available on Sportsnet in Canada and the main NBC network in the United States. Your likely goaltending matchup, I don't see any reason why it's not going to be Brian Elliott and Corey Crawford one more time. This has been a low-scoring series, obviously, the 1-0 game in overtime. So there's only been 6 goals scored in this series between 2 games. A low-scoring series could often come down to special teams. Whoever's got the special teams edge likely has the edge moving forward in the series. These 2 teams are only a combined 1 for 13 on the power play through their first 2 games. So the penalty killing units are definitely getting it done for both of these teams, but you feel like if one of these teams can break out on the power play, they might just be the team that ends up taking this series. Of note, the Blackhawks are averaging 32 shots per game in the first 2 games of this series, while the Blues are only putting 24.5 on Corey Crawford. So that could very well spell some problems for the Blues if they can't generate some more offense, because when you take getting outshot on average by 7.5 shots a game and you give the other team home ice, couple of those pucks are probably going to tuck in behind your goaltender there unless he's playing unbelievably. So that, coupled with the home ice advantage now going to the Blackhawks, that could be a problem, and that's something to watch out for the Blues. If they can keep the Blackhawks under 30, they got a much better chance. And I will have my eyes glued on Jonathan Toews in this game. Toews co-leads the playoffs in shots. He's got 11 shots in 2 games. He's one of only 8 players that have 10 or more in these playoffs, but he has not scored yet. Toews a little bit snake-bitten with these, but I would imagine Toews has got a great chance here in Game 3 back home to get off the schneid. Keep your eye on Jonathan Toews, and I think keep your eye on the Blackhawks. They're moving home here. I think the Blackhawks win this game. I think home ice advantage, that's one of the hardest buildings to win in all of hockey. One of the best playoff atmospheres in all of hockey. Chelsea dagger all day. I like Chicago to beat the Blues in Chicago. I'll give them a score of 3-1. Maybe that third goal is an empty netter, who knows. But I like Chicago 3-1 to win Game 3. The Lightning and Red Wings series now shifting to the Motor City, HockeyTown, USA, shifting to Detroit. Unfortunately, now the hometown Red Wings are down 2-0 to the Lightning, having lost both games in Florida. This game gets underway 7 p.m. Eastern. It's on CBC in Canada as well as CNBC in the United States. Your likely goaltending matchup, well, we know it's going to be Ben Bishop for Tampa Bay. The question mark is, who are the Red Wings going to go with? Are they going to stick with Jimmy Howard? Are they going to go to Peter Mrazek? Now, to be perfectly honest, if it was me, I think if I was the coach of the Red Wings, I look at my team and I go, this is a team that is killing for a spark. This team needs a big kick in the ass, and I think a change between the pipes is just the way to do it. If it was me, there's no better way to motivate my team than to change the goaltender. I like Peter Mrazek to get the start in Game 3. There has been no official word yet, one way or the other. Howard hasn't played terribly, but especially in that Game 2, I thought Howard did not look great. He didn't look great in Game 1, but he really didn't look great in Game 2. So I like Peter Mrazek to get the start. I mean, Mrazek was the better goaltender all year. He started more games, had a much better save percentage. Mrazek was the better goaltender. So I think they go to Mrazek in Game 3. They need that spark. This is a must-win. If Game 2 was a must-win, Game 3 is a super must-win. Because if you go down 3-0 to the Lightning, I'm sorry. It's not happening. I don't think they beat them in Tampa Bay. So, I mean, you go down 3-0, it ain't happening. This series is over probably in 5. Lightning, of course, leading the playoffs in scoring. The team has scored 8 goals in their 2 games. Interestingly enough, they're only tied for second last in terms of power play percentage, only 9.1%. So the Red Wings have been doing their job on the penalty kill. When they get in trouble, the penalty kill's been really good. Unfortunately, Tampa Bay hasn't needed their power play to win these first 2 games. It starts at the top for the Lightning. The tandem of Kucherov and Johnson, 5 goals, 6 helpers for 11 points in 2 games. They are the machine. They are the engine that is driving this offense. Detroit has got to keep the 2 of them down. They got to plaster their best defensive players on them at all times. Now they have the benefit of line matching because they've come home. This is a must-win game for Detroit. Tampa Bay doesn't have to win this game. I like Detroit. I think your back's against the wall. You got to do something. If you have any hope in this series, you've got to win Game 3. So I'm going to take Detroit as the team who is the most desperate, the team that absolutely needs this win. I'm going to take Detroit at home 3-2. Sticking in the Eastern Conference, we've got Florida now traveling to New York to take on the Islanders. This series tied at 1 game apiece. Game gets underway at 8 p.m. Eastern on Sportsnet in Canada and NBCSN in the United States. Your likely goaltending matchup, one more time, Roberto Luongo taking on Thomas Greiss. The Islanders, very exciting for their fan base, hosting their first playoff game at the Barclays Center, so it's going to be a big night, full of pomp and circumstance, I'm sure, for the Islanders. You had a huge bounce-back game for Roberto Luongo in Game 2. I challenged him. He answered 41 of 42 stops in the second game, including helping to kill 3 Islanders power plays. So Luongo had himself a hell of a game in Game 2. Looked great. Looked like he's back. These 2 teams of note rank number 1 for Florida and tied for number 2 in terms of shots per game in these playoffs. The Panthers averaging 38.5 shots per game on Thomas Greiss, which is just an indicator there of really how good Thomas Greiss has been. I think I've underrated him in terms of how good he's played in these first 2 games, given that he's facing 38.5 shots a game. The Islanders are throwing 34 a game at Luongo, including the 42 that they threw at him in Game 2. I expect nothing different in this game. I expect a ton of shots. I actually expect a lot of offense. I don't think this is going to be a goaltender's duel here in Game 3. I like the Panthers actually on the road to take home ice away from the Islanders, spoil the Islanders' home playoff debut. I like the Panthers tonight to win this game 5-4. And what the hell, let's get greedy. Let's send it to overtime too. And our final game of the night sees the Nashville Predators taking on Anaheim in Game 2 of their series. The Predators with a bit of a surprising but very impressive victory in Game 1 to take a 1-0 series lead. This game gets underway at 10:30 p.m. Eastern Time. It's available on Sportsnet in Canada, as well as NBCSN and Fox Sports in the United States. Your likely goaltending matchup, one more time, is going to be Pekka Rinne against John Gibson. Now, the Preds surprised me in the first game, obviously. I didn't think they were going to win that game. I thought Gibson maybe looked a little shaky, brushing off the playoff nerves, I guess. The Preds surprised me, though. They ripped home ice advantage away from a Stanley Cup favorite. I don't think it's hyperbolic of me to say that a lot of people were favoring the Ducks to go to the Western Conference Final, to go to the Stanley Cup Final, maybe even to win the Cup. This team is a favorite to win the Cup this year, and Nashville went out in the first game of the playoffs and said, screw you, home ice advantage gone. So that's very impressive to me. On the Ducks side of the ice, Getzlaf and Perry, they did hit the score sheet in Game 1, but to me, the Ducks' best players have to be better. I wasn't super impressed with them in Game 1, even though they did hit the score sheet. To be perfectly honest, I was more impressed with Ryan Kessler than I was with Getzlaf. And defensively, the Ducks need to be better. In the regular season, the Ducks had the 4th best average of shots against per game, and they got outshot, and they gave up too many opportunities to the Predators in Game 1. That's got to change, especially if Gibson goes out in Game 2 and still feels a little nervous or unconfident or anything like that. That's got to change, because you got to protect your goaltender. The best way to do that is to keep those pucks away from the net. As far as a prediction goes, I don't think Lightning strikes twice here. I'm going to take the smart money and I'm going to play with Anaheim here in the second game. I don't think the Preds beat Anaheim twice on home ice. Then again, I said the exact same thing about San Jose, and look what happened there. But I like the Ducks tonight. I'm going to take the Ducks 3-1 to win Game 2, tie this series up heading to the Music City. All right, folks, that is going to do it for the Sunday, April 17th edition of the Bridgewater's Finest 2016 NHL Playoffs podcast. Once again, tell me about what you thought of the Antoine Roussel goal. Tell me what you thought about the Jason Kamara goal. Tell me what you thought about what your favorite game was last night. Tell me all of that. Hit me up in the comments section. Flood my comments section. Fantastic. Once again, thank you guys so much for all the support through this podcast. I'm having a lot of fun. I hope you're having a lot of fun listening. It seems like quite a few of you are. That's it for me, Justin, Bridgewater's Finest on YouTube, Blockbuster_guy on Twitter, and boys and girls, I will see you again tomorrow.